Hi, and welcome to this episode of Heart-Centered Success. I'm your host, Diane Hayworth, and I am so excited about our show today. It's all on clarity and intuition. And I have a very special panel, really special to me, because each of these ladies were teachers to me, mentors. They all helped me in their own unique way tap into my own sense of intuition, which gave me clarity. They have been instrumental in helping me change my life, so I am thrilled to welcome them. I hope you've got pencil and paper because you're going to want to take notes on this one. Our very first guest is probably familiar to you, Melody Craft. Hi, Melody. She's a soul navigator. I'm so happy to have you here.
Good to be here. Thank
Yay.
you.
And Melissa Fike. Melissa is the founder of the Spiritual Expansion Academy. Melissa, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
And Miranda and I have been together for probably 10 years.
Yeah.
Probably at least 10 years. And she is an angelic intuitive and empowerment coach. So you can see all of these ladies are really wonderfully qualified to help you understand how you can better tap into your own intuition. So let's get to it. The whole idea behind this Heart-Centered Success series is helping people listen to that intuitive voice, to understand the difference between the mind chatter and that real divine essence that really can guide us and tell us what to do. Melody, tell us a little bit about how that works for you. How did you first discover that? Was it when you were a child? Was it older? And how do you use that in your life now?
Well, I think from the very beginning as a child, I was intuitive, and I listened to that, and I used it as a navigating skill to survive, basically. And I continued that until there was a point in my life when I stepped back from it a bit, because in my graduate training it was a very analytical approach to everything, and I found that it was a conflict. It was two different ways of thinking. And so I pushed the intuitive aspect back for a while. And I have to say, it was probably one of the worst mistakes I ever made. So when I realized that I needed to bring back and rely on my intuition as opposed to that logical mind that comes from the egoic consciousness, things began to change in my life. When you do that, it's a gradual process. You can't just instantly bring it back. It's one step at a time. And so what I do now, I actually offer classes for people to help them identify the difference between that intuitive voice and the voice of the egoic consciousness. Because a lot of people are very confused. They're not clear about where this information is coming from.
Or how to trust it.
And how to trust it. And then teach them what you need to do to trust it. Because when you step into that intuitive voice and take action on it, what happens is you're going to see a result from it. And that result is going to give you confidence that it works. So when you continue doing that, you're building your confidence in your intuition.
Yep.
And it also takes you really into a deeper place of having faith. So it's very powerful. It's far more powerful than relying on that egoic consciousness, because its job is to keep you limited and small.
Right.
So.
Right. Oh, yeah. Great. Melissa, what about you? Did you always know you were intuitive? Were you always the weird kid in your class?
I was always the weird kid. Absolutely.
I know I was.
Still am a weird kid in the class. I was actually very empathic as a child, and I would feel other people's feelings, and I would be told that I was very emotional. And I realized as an adult that that emotional component really helped me navigate my world and navigate my life. So, and I've always been so interested in spirituality. I started doing astrology when I was in high school. So it was a natural evolvement for me, really working with intuition. And I have been teaching intuitive development for 15 years. And that has also helped me open up my own intuition more and more and more, and helping so many other people. It means so much when people are using their intuition to guide them, not just get messages, but to guide them in their life. Because we have this internal guidance system that means so much, and so many people aren't utilizing it to its fullest potential. And I really want people to learn how to utilize their intuition in business, in their life, in their family, and it will really help them, guide them to the things that are going to work well for them, as opposed to us using our ego that doesn't always help us discover what's for our highest and best.
And I think it's really important to realize that your intuition is nothing to be afraid of.
Right.
I mean, it's very natural, wouldn't you say, Miranda?
Yes.
How did it work for you?
I was born into it. So both parents, both my sides of my parents, they have gifts. And so being the weird kid, I wasn't, not in my
You were the
family.
normal
anyway. I
kid.
was the normal kid in my family. I think, on the outside, I learned to keep things to myself. But I really tapped in even as a young kid. And I was very, very fortunate to have parents that guided me. So telling them what's going on and not being judged and being guided really, really helped me to really grow strong into it. And of course, I developed more into my abilities as I grew. And I too actually stepped back from it early in my 20s and stepped back into it later in my 20s. So I'm glad that I stepped back, but stepping back was easy for me because these abilities are so innate. And I learned early on to trust them. So I was able to identify that intuition and that ego side. It's very easy for me to see what is what. So I utilize that in everything I do, and I always have.
It's just a way to live, isn't it?
Yes.
I mean, it's a way to live from that space.
Yeah.
And one thing that I wanted to make sure people in the audience realize is we're going to be talking about different ways to access information, and we're going to be talking about what you ladies do specifically. But intuition is, I've worked with plenty of people that say, well, I had a sense in my gut. I knew in my heart, or in my gut, I knew this was the right decision. That's your intuition.
Yeah.
That's your intuition. It doesn't have to be, it can be literally that simple, can it? I just knew this was the right thing to do. And to me, that's how it started. I was, had some intuitive episodes, I would say, as a child, and my mother took me to the doctor. So I learned really quickly that this was not a good thing to just not just say anything about it. So I just thought I was just quietly the weird kid in school. I didn't think anybody else knew. Evidently my family did. But I didn't know to embrace it. And that's one thing I love about these ladies. They have all, in their own way, helped me through their unique skill set, gifts, and ways of teaching, develop that in myself, and now it's what I teach to my own clients. Melody, one of the things that you do I find so fascinating, when people are on this journey and they're trying to learn to develop their own skills, but maybe they're in a crisis, maybe they feel like they need some outside support, that's where I just had the most wonderful experience with your soul art. Tell people a little bit about that, because that's a way my intuition said, go see this lady. And so I was doing that when I got messages from you.
Oh, I have to say, I'm always a bit surprised how people respond when I do, and I call it spirit art. Some people are more familiar with the term psychic art, but spirit art's a more accurate description of it.
For what you do.
And so, because I can see individuals on the other side who've crossed over, and also being an artist, I can draw their likeness. And so it gives evidence to people when I'm sitting there and I draw a picture of, Aunt Jane or better yet, when it's not a family member that doesn't resemble them,
Right.
someone, they know there's no such thing as death. And that can be very healing for people.
Oh, absolutely.
Because now they start loosening that grip of fear about dying because they realize there is no such thing as death. And then generally when I get messages from individuals on the other side, that's also healing, because who doesn't want to connect with someone that you love? So it's always interesting to see how people respond to it, and it affects everyone in their own unique way. But the bottom line, there's always a healing component about it. So that's just one way I work with individuals in terms of healing. So really my whole focus is about healing, helping
Right.
people remembering the essence of what they really are and not all these illusionary beliefs. And that's just one way I do it. So
I just find that just so empowering, because I know when a session, you've done several sessions with me actually, and some of the validation that I got, because I wasn't maybe as strong as I am now, so it just the validation really helped a lot, and it helped my clarity, right? It helped give me clarity, and I think clarity and intuition kind of go hand in hand, at least they do for me. Sometimes I will get my clarity through my intuition, whether it's journaling or something like that. Other times, it's like I have the intuition piece first and then the clarity. It just goes back and forth that way.
I think in some stages in our development, and I really kind of prefer the word unfoldment as opposed to development, we need some confirmation of where we're at. You know, I think that's important. You will reach a time in which you no longer need it.
I still think it's fun. Okay, can I just say that? I just still think it's fun. It's just fun.
It is fun, yes. Okay.
It's just fun.
Yeah, but you'll find you'll get stronger and stronger in really trusting your own wisdom. Yeah, and
when
we
we
all
say-
go at our own pace. Yeah.
And when we say own wisdom, are we talking about that's internal divine wisdom, not our ego wisdom, but from that divine source?
The ego has no wisdom.
Mine sure doesn't.
I mean, the ego
Mine
has its
sure
own
doesn't.
logic, but our
Right.
intuition also is logical.
In a different way.
In a different way.
In a different
Yeah,
way.
Yeah, and so the more we allow ourselves to trust that quiet voice in us, the more we unfold, and the more we recognize false beliefs that we have about ourselves that keep us limited. And as we keep peeling these away, then our soul gifts start emerging. So people will discover on their journey abilities and gifts and talents that they weren't even aware of previously, because they're peeling away all the illusionary thoughts
Right.
about themselves. Yeah.
Hidden
And-
by the fears, by the
yeah.
worries.
Yeah, and so generally people early in their development, they do go to people, individuals that are further along the journey than they are for guidance. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I think it's very helpful. And you just keep moving and allow yourself to move into where you feel is right for you in the moment.
I think that's wonderful advice. And I also love the idea that as you develop your own skills, a good teacher, and I know all of you all are good, I would certainly consider you good teachers, always understands it's all of us together anyway. There's no up or down or better or worse. It's just where are you in your unfolding, in your unfolding process. Melissa, tell us a little bit about the way that you would introduce intuition to a client that wants to develop their own sense of self.
I try to explain it that no matter where you think you're getting your information, a lot of people say, well, I can't hear my guides, I can't hear my angels, I don't know what that would be like, I don't see clairvoyantly. And what I tell them is, if you're looking outside of yourself for your answers, that's not always going to give you the right feedback. So it's always coming through something within yourself. So even if it is an angel talking to you, they have to come through your either higher self or higher consciousness, however you look at that. So those beings are working through you and your openness. Right? So if your ego is just oinking away and trying to distract you from the subtle energies of being aware and present, that's going to distract you. But when you're quiet, that ego voice, then you are able to open up. And I also give people the best technique, I think, is synchronicities. I think that everybody should consistently and always look for synchronicities in their life. So if I am asking a question, and I still do this, for instance, when I took a group to Sedona a long time ago, I said, well, should I really do this? And I had these synchronistic events, like somebody handed me a magazine that said Sedona, I'd never seen it before, and a few other things, and then I knew, okay, Spirit is saying, yes, this is the way.
Because you were open.
Because I was open, and I asked for it to be just show me. I didn't ask for, it's not, people think intuition is this high energy. It's not like, Noah, build an ark. It's not like that. It's much more subtle, and it's much more, and the universe is always giving us messages, and we just have to go, oh yeah, thanks for that message, thanks for that message.
I know I've asked for emails and it doesn't come back to me, but I've asked. Rhonda, you were so helpful to my family after the death of my mother, actually. And my sister still talks about this. She's at a conference right now, actually, developing more mediumship skills to help people through grief. So it was just a wonderful healing journey, and I know that you were really instrumental in pointing me towards resources, because I did not grow up where this was an okay thing
Right.
at all. And there weren't even like books in the library about it. There was no internet. So I just think for me it was wonderful to have somebody that would say, read this book, go look at this. This is something you should check out. That was really very helpful. What other kinds of things do you do? I know it must be specific to the client, but how do you introduce this idea of intuition and trusting that inner voice to people?
When people come to me, all right, so when people come, I always find that I need to sit with them and just kind of see where they're at. We were talking about it earlier today, that, you know, you have to start where they start from. So you have to kind of see where they're at. And so I sit with them, I read energy, so sitting and reading energy helps me to kind of feel into their starting point. And then I'll ask them, can I ask you some questions? A lot of people let me ask questions. And then I will tap into, okay, well, how did you feel about that? Feeling is the most important, I find, because we know that we reacted angrily or we got upset or we were happy, but now it takes it a little deeper. Why did you feel that way? Why are you angry? Why? What's the the cause of that? So kind of going deep to discover that helps to kind of bring some things up, and then we can kind of go into the duality of fear and love, ego and intuition, right? And so that's what we do. So we kind of have to go through an uncovering stage first, and then from there, I will utilize all the different resources that I have, because everybody's going to be different. You were different, Kyle was different, everybody's different. So I'll go through each person differently.
So you'll use your tool set, your own intuitive tool set to understand how to serve that client. Just the way an attorney or a physician uses their particular knowledge base, right?
That's right.
And I think those are two professions also. Good attorneys and good physicians certainly do tap into their intuition, whether they call it that or not. That's certainly what I've found. Now, Melody, I know that something that you and I share is a passion for A Course in Miracles.
Absolutely.
We absolutely love this. And I have to say that even though I was raised Christian, I just find that with that particular teaching, this just goes hand. It's just listening. It's just listening to spirit. There's really, I'm not finding a conflict in that. And do you find that when you're running Course in Miracle classes and things?
In terms of being a conflict with Christianity?
No, in terms of people finding that listening to their intuition is a nice fit, a natural fit with the Course in Miracles.
Oh, it is a natural fit. Yeah, I think some of the concepts for many people, they struggle with it with the Course in Miracles. But once they kind of just allow themselves to continue with it a bit and just have an open mind and think of it, okay, this is a new way of thinking. How does it fit into my life? How can I use this? They will have those light bulb moments. It's like, oh, and so they can see how they can use it in very practical ways and start seeing their life change. So when I used to do a Course in Miracles class for about almost 3 years, there were some people by the end of 6 months, they radically changed their life. It was like just the lights were going on. And so it's really lovely when you see people, stepping into something that really resonates with them, that helps them move on. Now, the Course in Miracles is one path.
Right.
There's many paths. We all have the same purpose, but there's different paths in getting there. And so if it's a good fit for you, then I advise people to continue with it. Yes.
And I have to say, I have people in my coaching practice that have come to me that have had no specific religious training. Some of them are Course in Miracles, very few actually. Some of them have come from very strict religious backgrounds, but still really resonate with the truth of understanding how to tap into their intuition and realizing that when they don't listen to that little voice, oh, you know what, I knew I should have done this and I didn't. Gosh, what is that? How can I learn to trust that? That's what I think is so helpful, because your life really does change. Do you find that?
Oh yes, absolutely. And with the trust factor, your life will change even more the more you trust yourself. Absolutely. I find that people what they're missing is that they don't trust themselves. And they're always worried about getting things right or wrong.
And the Course in Miracles would address that. It means you're listening to the ego. Yeah.
And we're going to talk more about that in just a few minutes. We'll be back right after this.
When I look in the mirror,
do I like what I see?
Yes. I like my teeth and I like my tongue. I like my nose. I like my ears.
And my eyes.
And I like my face. gusta todo.
I see a perfect reflection of me.
And I wouldn't change a single thing.
Because I am enough.
Welcome back to Heart-Centered Success. Today we're talking about clarity and intuition. And I've got a question for you all actually. Where do you go? What process do you use specifically to get clarity when you're maybe struggling with a specific issue? Miranda.
Specific issue. Okay, so first I look at the issue and I take action. A lot of people say meditate, reflect. I take action first. And the reason why is because if I take action, then I can kind of see where I'm going. So it gives me a little bit more clarity. For example, if I have an issue, I'll research it a little bit more and try to understand it and get my head wrapped around it. And then once I get that piece, I'll start looking for the experts, people who've had experiences in that area, people who maybe understand it a little bit better, and then I'll do my reflection. I'll take everything in that I've learned, I'll sit, and then I'll journal, I'll meditate on it, and then I'll make a plan.
So you're using the mind and heart together because the heart is obviously steering you
That's right.
to the resources.
Absolutely, and meditation actually helps you towards the end, because when you meditate, you're giving your brain that relaxed state, saying, it's okay, now you can relax, let me go into the heart and see where I'm coming from at that point. And then trusting, that's where the intuition is. You trust that intuition to come forward. The more quiet you get, the more is going to come forward, and your higher self's not going to do you wrong. I don't ever believe that. So we just sit. It's important that we sit and we quiet our mind. I give my husband kudos for that, because he goes outside a lot in nature and kind of takes in what's going on in the environment, and it calms him down, quiets his mind, and he can connect. And that's where intuition kicks in and gets more, you get that clarity that you're needing.
Well, I think that's a good point. A lot of people find that there are certain settings where they get that clarity. Melissa, what about you? If you're really struggling with something, how do you get clarity about that?
I usually sit back and ask to be shown what's my next strategic move. And I ask my own intuition to give me what that might be. So I feel that if you at least take some action, I totally believe in action. We live in an action energy universe. You know, you can't sit back and go, oh, please bring it to me, bring it to me. You have to actually put some energy forward. So that's action. So I agree 100% with you. I also just sit and wait to see what comes to me. And I don't overthink it. So what will happen is I'll just run across something on some random YouTube thing will show up, and it's exactly what I need to know at that time. Or somebody will call me and we'll have a 10-minute conversation, a friend, and then I all of a sudden have a whole different understanding and clarity on something that I was struggling with within. And I also truly believe that we are our own worst enemies when it comes to struggling. And when we struggle, it's because we're resisting something. So I always ask myself, where am I resisting? And where am I in the flow? So wherever I'm resisting, I just let it go. I just close that door. And if it opens again, great. But if it's not, if I'm resisting or it feels too hard or it's too much of a struggle, I just let it go. And I have closed doors to opportunities, to situations, to people, because there was resistance. But when there's the flow, that always feels so much better.
And that can be a struggle too, right? Because sometimes those struggles, like you're married to them, they're in your family, they're people you work with. So it's a process, isn't it, to understand how to do that. What do you do if you ever have any struggle? You may not, Melody. Do you ever struggle with an issue? You may not.
Yeah,
I expect you to levitate any second.
Maybe next year.
Okay.
No, so
It's
when
on
I,
camera.
when I find myself struggling, I know immediately I'm believing something that's untrue about myself.
Oh, perfect, yeah.
And then I have to look at it. And once I identify it, then I can let it go. And I'm going to use terms of the Course because that's so relevant for me, is that when you're struggling, it means you're in the split mind. So you've got your ego talking to you, and then you also have the Holy Spirit talking to you, and the ego's always trying to fight and keep you limited. So you want to just simply identify, what is this that I'm believing in the moment about myself that's not true? And when you see it, then you can choose to let it go. And so, and now you can step out of it, not only step out of it for that particular situation, but you're also peeling back an illusionary thought about yourself that helps clear you more. And so again, it helps you to unfold into yourself. So.
You know, one thing I love about these kinds of discussions is that everybody does things differently. And I think that's really the beauty in having multiple teachers and books and resources and things. I know for me, I like to have a foundation. So when I'm struggling with something, I do meditate and journal, and I do those things, but I always go back to a question for me, and is, what does love look like here? And the number one is, what does love look like for me? What does love look like for everybody involved? And then more importantly, how does love move me forward? So, and I have to say, a lot of times I fight with myself. Well, I don't care what love looks like. And after I get over myself with that, if I keep pulling myself back to a loving perspective and go inside and ask, what is the loving perspective? And I agree with you, the loving perspective is never to think you're fat or stupid or dumb or you didn't know something or that you're less than in any way. That's never the answer. Nor is it to think that of anyone else. At least that's what I've found.
And it's also very good, you know, as you all mentioned, to sit and just simply get quiet, because when you get quiet, you become more centered and you can get more clarity. And so someone asked me the other day, she didn't know what to do about something. And I said, here's a good question to ask yourself about any situation when you're trying to make a decision. What's the most loving thing to do?
Yeah.
That's it. That's simply
Period.
it. We don't have to keep searching and searching. Really, life can be very simple. Not necessarily easy, but if we allow ourselves to understand the simplicity in our heart and in our soul and listen to that, our life can dramatically change.
And it happens quickly, actually.
Yes, it can.
I won't say that I get to that place. It hadn't taken me decades to get there, by the way, and that there aren't some days that I'm off. But it's amazing how when your inner world is more peaceful, loving, and kind, your outer world reflects
Of
that.
course.
Yeah.
Because our thoughts are the cause of everything. Everything else is just simply the effect.
Right, it's a reflection. Your exterior world rather is always a reflection of your interior world. Now, do you find that? Is that something that you teach your clients?
Yes, perspective I think is a big piece of that. Yes, you know, we can look at how we feel and why we feel that way, but we also have to look at perspective. Everything plays into the way we see things. Our religion, the way we were raised, our economic status, everything plays in, you know, our education, everything plays into
we have our
how
filters.
yes, exactly, how we see. So what happens is part of empowering someone is to help them see things from a different perspective, to open that up and look at the possibilities. So it is that duality. You know, we're talking about that ego side and that intuitive side, but really we don't want to get rid of ego. We just want to get it into balance with your intuition, because if we can get it into balance, we understand that ego side or that shadow side, there's something to be learned there. We have to, there's challenges. Those challenges are given to us for a reason, for us to learn and grow. And then we take those challenges and we move forward. And we can either let it hold us back, or we can move forward and say, I learned something from that. So I think that everything we experience, we need to learn and look at, what did I learn from that? And how did that deepen me? So when I'm looking at, I think that intuition plays into it, but you still need that ego side in there. You do need to take a look at it. You can't just dismiss it. So.
Well, I think absolutely to see the part that it plays. I know for me, my ego gives me endless opportunities for forgiveness.
Yes.
For self and others.
But exactly, that's what I'm saying.
Endless opportunities.
And if you identify that, that's where awareness comes in, is when you become aware, your intuition is more, you're more in alignment with that intuition. Awareness, being very present, all of that kind of gives you that clarity that you're needing, and you're able to tap in a little bit deeper. You're able to listen to that higher self, or to that intuition, that gut feeling that you get. My life is guided by my intuition. Everything I do is, and it's because I've learned to trust it. It's become so natural that sometimes I don't even think about it, I just do.
in all areas.
Yeah, and so when a challenge does come up, I don't get there and go, oh my God, this happened to me. I stop and go, okay, this happened to me. This is how I'm feeling about it. Why do I feel that way? Okay, this is why I feel that way. Okay, what am I going to do about it? What did I learn and what am I going to do about it? I'm not going to sit there. So what I do with my clients is I teach them ways to overcome, to expand their perception about things and look at it in a different way. Look at the other opportunities that you have from that one situation.
I do find that, I'll speak for myself, I still do get triggered.
We all do. We all do. It's called being a human being, right?
More than I like to.
That's
but
good.
But going back to that clarity and sitting inside really helps me go forward. Do you find that, Melissa?
Yes. And actually, the trigger is the gift. Because when you have something come up in your life, you can either become distraught and become a victim to that situation or experience, or you can empower yourself. And it's important to have both, these things come up so that you can see both sides of it. And we do live in a world of duality. So in this world of duality, there's always going to be something that isn't perfectly balanced, because there's an up and down, a right and a wrong in this reality. So when we are moving forward, you have to look at yourself and ask yourself, it's not about being right or wrong, but what's best for me in this situation? And how do I feel? And where is this trigger really coming from? Most likely it's not coming from the situation. It's coming from something that happened a long time ago, and that you're just re-experiencing it, because we do have patterns. And when I work with my clients, I look at their patterns in their life. So it's the big patterns. It's a pattern of abandonment. It's a pattern of betrayal. It's a pattern of abuse. And those patterns come up for us over and over and over again. So it's usually not situational. It's usually a bigger picture to that. And when you help people discover that, they become empowered, because they see, wow, that's where that all came from. And I no longer need that, because I don't have to define myself from my experiences or my past or what has happened to me.
But I think that we have to transcend ourselves from right and wrong, don't
Yes.
you think?
Well, that's the duality, right?
Yes, that's the duality, because in our mind, we look at it and go, well, this is wrong and this is right. That's a perception. That's how you perceive it, that there's something wrong. Everything's actually neutral. There is no right or wrong. It's just neutral. You create that right or wrong by your experience, by society. You see what I mean? So it's like, where you are at that time. So it's really looking at things from a neutral standpoint and then addressing it from there. Because if we look at something, this is bad, this is wrong, we're going to react that way to it, right? And then when it's good, we overreact, we're excited and we're happy, right? But if we want to be centered, we really need to approach it from more of a centered place. So those need to be in balance and looked at in a different perspective. It's more neutral, it's not wrong or right.
I know, I think often of one of my favorite lessons from a course, that's I'm never angry for the reason I think I am.
Yeah.
And
It's a good phrase to remember.
Yeah, I mutter that often, actually, because I think I know, but I don't. It's just never what I think it is. Right. And when I can go inside to that real, deep, true place, then I realize it's usually not really a calamity anyway. Evidently, leaving the half-open jar of peanut butter on the counter, who knew, is not a big thing, even though it really seemed like a big thing 20 minutes ago. It's not. And not that people don't have real challenges. I understand that. Obviously they do. We all have. Yeah. But boy, perspective really is something that is important. And to me, being able to, instead of react from my ego mind, being able to go into that intuitive place, that true place of me, in me, that's what makes a difference for me. What about you, Melody?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we know when we listen to our logical mind, it's always going to keep us stuck. So we want to just, and you had mentioned awareness, and awareness is so critical in changing our lives. We really, if you want to change your life, you have to reach a point where you're just willing to do whatever it takes. And that means absolutely being relentless about monitoring your thoughts, becoming aware of what you're thinking, because you can't change anything until you're aware of what you're thinking.
That's right.
So let's go from there. I think that we probably have a lot of people watching today that are interested, but maybe they're a little afraid. They don't exactly know where to start. So, Melody, absolutely one of the things we need to do is be aware of our thinking.
Be aware of our thoughts.
What other couple things would you recommend to someone who really wants to get connected to that inner divine and live from a more intuitive place?
So when you become aware of your thoughts, now you're becoming aware of the belief system that you have about yourself. Okay? And if you're stuck, it means that you're believing things that are not true. So you want to get clear. Okay, I'm believing something that's not true. So I am now willing to release this thought pattern. Now, the mind is not like a void, so you have to replace it with something else. And this is not about positive thinking. I mean, we can do positive thinking with a diet, and how long does that last? It just doesn't work. We have to go to a different level. So what you want to do, and I show people how to discover what their own unique, and I call it a mantra it is, because it's different for everyone. And it's just a word or a very short phrase that allows them to feel fully expanded and just feel in this place of peace.
So brings them back to their center.
So they use this word as a trigger to take them into this place of peace. And when they feel it, you can extinguish that old thought pattern in as little as 3 weeks. Now, some are very deeply embedded. It may take longer than that, but it's about being relentless and continuing to do that. So, and you're always making a choice. So our real power is about making a choice. What do I want to think? Because whatever we focus on, that's what we're going to bring in our life. So it's about being aware, replacing that old thought pattern. And as you do that, your life does change.
And understanding you make that choice moment by moment.
Absolutely.
You don't, just because it's 10 a.m. and you kind of blew it, it's 10:01 and once in a minute, so you just keep monitoring and working that way.
And after a period of time, you'll realize, oh, I haven't had that thought for like 6 months. And you feel more free.
Yeah. Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Immediately.
Because you're not carrying all that baggage.
No, and you're thinking clearer. The clarity has come from that eternal and internal place. Melissa, what kinds of things do you tell people as a way to, just tips to help them get started trusting their intuitive voice?
I actually do something where I have them clear their thought forms energetically, and then I tell them, never make a decision from any other place than a clear heart. So I have them breathe and close their eyes, just allow all the thought forms they imagine them just leaving, because we do pick up on other people's thought forms, so they do accumulate around us, including our own thought forms. And then go quiet and listen to their heart, because I feel that if they're listening to their heart, they actually get the right answer immediately. They never waffle and what should I do, what should I not do. They know right immediately, because their heart is, as far as my belief system goes, the heart is connected to your higher consciousness, and they actually work together. And if you are worried about trying to get this higher understanding, I need my intuition to tell me the right answer, and there is no right answer. It's what is in this moment the best thing for you and for the people around you. And so to close your eyes and really ask your heart, if I were to know the answer, what would it be?
Now, I like that idea of, instead of having my intuition tell me, so you are separate from your intuition, making it you're the same. It's just finding out for yourself, but it's not getting the email like I wanted, right?
Yes.
It's really going in and getting it for yourself from that place of your true self.
Right. So if you believe in oneness and the oneness energy and everything is connected, then there is no outside of yourself. It's only within. And most people are looking outside of themselves, the external environment, because we were taught, at least most people in our society are taught that out there are your answers. Everything that you need to know is out there. And they aren't taught to go inside. And those are the things that we're retraining people to do, to find their intuition inside instead of exterior or outside of themselves.
That's one thing I'm really excited about in many school systems, and I think actually Baltimore might be one of them. They're actually teaching mindfulness and meditation in schools. I just think that's
EFT tapping is being
fantastic.
taught as well.
My little grandson is 10 months, meditates with his mom.
Beautiful. Yeah.
I'm not sure he knows what he's doing, but he's right but he's there. So it's just fantastic. What kinds of tips do you give people who are trying to start?
You know, I'll tell you, our children are our best examples.
Oh,
Both my
yes.
kids are very creative. One's a good writer, one is really good at sketch art. And they tend to do their art. Being creative helps us to tap in. It helps that zen. It gets us into the zen, helps us to relax. And then what happens is you get clarity, a little bit more clarity, you feel a little bit better, and you start. My oldest one, especially when she's sketching, she just gets that intuition and she feels guided and she knows what she needs to do. My youngest one, she's a writer, so hers is she gets clarity once everything comes out of her mind. She gets all of this thought out of her mind, and it's just like journaling. You get it down on paper, you feel better, you feel like everything's empty, you get a little bit more clear up there, and then you can feel like you can tap in a little bit easier. I think creativity is one of the biggest things. I love the mandala books that you can sit in color, because for people who can't meditate, and there's a lot of people that can't visualize, they can't meditate, they need something tangible to be able to calm their mind, because we need a calm mind to be able to tap into the intuition, especially if it's new for you. For us, it's a little bit easier because we've done this for a long time, but for a lot of people, they're still learning how to do it. So doing something active like that, that's coloring, actually activates that side of our brain where we're being creative, that right side, and that's our intuition, that's our intuitive side, and it opens that up and helps us to relax. We need to relax to be able to tap into that intuition, to be able to be mindful of our breathing. So I think creativity is a great way to kind of, it's the answer for anybody who can't visualize or who can't meditate.
Or who thinks they can't.
Or who thinks they
thinks
can.
they
Eventually they'll realize that they can, because really when you're being creative, you're kind of meditating already. You're
Right.
going into that space that feels good. So, you know, quieting yourself and removing the distractions. You know, I think that coloring is a focal point, right?
Right.
When
And
we
it's
meditate,
mindless.
yes, it's mindless. When we meditate, what do? We focus on our breathing, right? Well, when we're coloring, we're focusing on the mandala or whatever we're doing. So it's like a focal, just to kind of bring us back into just being in the present moment. So I would say creativity.
I love all of those. I also like when you say we learn from our children. My son, who's a forester now, when he was a little thing, it was never about video games or doing this or that. He wanted to be in the woods.
Yeah.
He wanted to be in the
It's
woods.
nature, getting back to
Just
nature.
wanted to be in the woods, and
Active meditation.
it is active meditation. And he didn't want mommy either. He just wanted to walk. Just wanted to walk in the woods and feel that energy. And you know what a beautiful practice. Actually, not everybody has necessarily woods by,
Yeah.
but I've found when I've had clients that actually I've had them bring flowers or plants into the house. They can, you know, just get lost in a flower. They can do things like that that just help them get out of what, I have one client that calls it the monkey mind. That little chattery mind that just won't stop. So she will actually, she pets her cats.
Yeah.
Animals are wonderful for that, I think, to get you into a different, as a matter of fact, I think there's some scientific research that shows the brain actually changes brain waves when you're doing something like I know it's cats, but dogs too.
Yeah.
Well,
You
support
communicate-
animals, right? Any
Right.
support animal. That's why they have support animals, and it's not even just they have ducks and little ponies.
heard of
And
a support
I've seen
Okay.
a support duck. They have support ducks and support ponies and horses, and they use them for a lot of things. So they do have all kinds of support animals. They prove
Did
that
not know
animals
that.
can actually
Yeah.
calm us down.
Well, the thing that's so wonderful about the animals and small children, right? Like I said, I've got this adorable, cutest kid in the world grandson. Just check that out on Facebook. But when I see him, it's just love responding to love. Much the same as if you have a kitten or a puppy
Right.
or something that's not trained yet, or it's just a little bundle of love. And it's just that love responding to love. And to watch the way he navigates through the world is really interesting, how he figures things out and how he's fearless, which is scary to his mom and I sometimes, but it's his trust that everything's going to be okay. Yeah. And of course, he's got a million adults right there, so it is going to be okay. Plus, he's got his divine support and everything else. But I think spending time with anything like any young animal,
Yeah.
human,
Yeah, animal,
human,
anything.
called anything.
Yeah.
It just really, first of all, it softens your heart, doesn't it?
Yes.
It really softens your heart, which is why there's so many kitten videos on YouTube.
Yeah, that's right.
Right?
Yeah.
That's where I go when I'm having a problem and I can't get to my happy place. I go to my kitten videos.
I've read research that said that when you're petting an animal or you're around them, it calms our breathing. Our breathing
course it
starts
does.
calming down. So think about that. Any animal calms your breathing. We need that. That's what relaxes our body. Because when we're meditating, we relax our body first, right?
Any
Gets us some
animal,
relaxation.
maybe. If
Not-
I'm in the woods and there's a bear,
Shark?
maybe
No.
not so much. Maybe not so much.
Maybe not.
But domestic,
Yes.
right?
Right.
Y'all remember that snake in my house?
Yeah,
It's
no.
not a calm moment for me. But the cat, very, very calm.
Yeah.
So I think being able to teach our clients and our families how to just connect to these kinds of innocent creatures, really, I find it does help you with your own intuition. Have you seen that as well?
Oh, of course. Yeah. Animals are very relaxing. Yeah.
Unless, like I said, it's a bear that's
Or a
in the
snake in
backyard
your-
or something.
yes,
Yeah. Otherwise,
yeah.
still creatures of God, by the way. Everybody that's going to send me an email, still creatures of God. However, I like mine a little tamer and kind of in the box a little more. Yeah. So before we leave, I do think that there are a lot of people who just think they don't have any intuitive gifts. And I know I firmly believe that's not the case. I think everybody has intuitive abilities. Rather they think it's just that, feeling in the gut, I just know this was right or wrong. Whatever it is, I think everybody's born with it. I think I really resonated when you all said, I left it away. I left it alone for a while, because that certainly happened to me as a child. It was not safe for me to talk about what was going on. It just wasn't. I went to the doctor and got a shot, so that was not going to happen. It was many years before I started exploring that. But what I do know, what I firmly believe, is we all have intuitive gifts. We all have the ability to develop this as much as we want to. And I think that from my perspective, the people that I've known and worked with that are really feeling loved, loving, they're living full, heart-centered lives are the ones that are using these intuitive gifts as a guide.
Agreed.
What would you add to that?
Intuitive abilities are innate. We are born with it. We all have that right. And I think it is society that has moved us to the logical mind and said, okay, don't worry about feelings and sensing. We need to stay with the logical mind. And I think that that's what's pulled a lot of people away from believing that intuition doesn't exist. But I think that sitting with each person and just going over, just talking to them, and you can point out somebody like me or somebody like you that knows how to identify intuition. When we're sitting with them and they're just having a conversation with us, we can say, okay, wait a minute, what did you just say? This is actually intuition. How did that make you feel? What were you do? What was going on? If I said to a room of people, think of one thing in your life that seemed like it was a miracle, there was no way, everybody will have a story. Everybody has a story. So that is something playing into it. So it's opening the door. We all have intuition. We just need to develop it. We're all at different levels. And I think that's the biggest thing. And that's what I tell anybody. A lot of the people that follow me, or all the people, are either sensitive or they're intuitive. And some people are curious. They want to know, do I have this too?
I think that's the best.
Yeah.
To be curious.
Yeah, to be
I
curious.
think that's like
right.
the best.
Absolutely.
Because they're more than open to say, okay, let me try that out. So, learning to develop it, it starts with meditation, I believe. That's the door opener for me, is meditation and sitting in gratitude. I believe that once you have those things, the world opens up and the possibilities are endless.
And I love the idea of, even though you'd said perhaps our society has helped close the doors, when you study Native American studies or the Aborigines and you see other societies where intuition is just a way of life.
That's right.
Now, Melissa, I know that you go to Sedona, and I bet there are people that say, oh, I'm intuitive, but just in Sedona.
Yes, I've seen that.
It
I've
only
seen
happens
that.
in Sedona. How crazy is that? But that's what they
Right,
think.
they do. I have a great tool that I've worked with many clients to trust their intuition and to see all the times they've been intuitive. So what I do is I tell them to go sit down in a quiet space, make sure your breath, no distractions, and to write down all the times in their lives from early childhood that you knew something, was going to happen. Even if you didn't act on it, it doesn't matter.
Right.
Or you felt something, or you were a little apprehensive to go near somebody, and you find out later there was something wrong with them, or something that you shouldn't have been interacting with. We have those intuitive hits all the time, but the thing is, most people don't recognize that was an intuitive hit. So I have them go through their life and write down all the times that they had those intuitive hits. And then I say, now ask yourself, how did it feel? Where did it come from? Was it a feeling? Was it a sense? Did I get chills? Did I recoil? Did it make me feel nervous? And then now you know what your intuition feels like, because everyone has intuitive hits. It is part of our makeup as human beings. And we aren't taught that this is the prime thing that we should always be focusing on, is our intuition, because that's what the people who are doing amazing things in the world, most of them are following their intuition. Whether they call it that or not isn't the case. It doesn't matter if they call it
Inner
that.
knowing, a lot of
Inner
times, yeah,
knowing,
in the
higher,
business community.
whatever they call it, but they're utilizing it.
Yep, and obviously they're having their whole life flow with that.
Yes.
Melody, what would you add?
Well, I agree with everything that you said. I mean, it's just a natural ability that we all have, and we do it all the time. Most people don't recognize that's what it is. It's that simple.
Because perhaps they're afraid, or they don't think it's accepted, or they don't want to be.
Could be that, or it's just that they've just never met anyone else where they've just talked about it. It's like, oh, you do that too?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I think one thing that's helped from a society standpoint is that we have shows not only like this, but on different cable networks that openly talk about paranormal, spiritual, and metaphysical topics. And now I remember literally having to look for weeks to find a book to teach
I
me,
remember
right?
that too, yes,
Like,
yeah.
and now they fill this room 20 times.
Yeah.
So I think, and also you don't even have to, I mean, yay, let's get a book, but if not, there's all of these online classes and just so many resources now that people have. And I don't know about you, but in my classes, I have the straightest, most, I just have people from all walks of life. People that you would line up and go, oh, this guy's never going to come into my class. And they come from all walks of life, all stages of life. I love that. I don't think it's ever too late. I don't know about you all. I don't think it's ever too late to connect to your
They're
intuitive
awakening.
abilities.
That's the thing. Everybody's waking up. I really think because we're finding older, younger, people from different religious backgrounds, people from different cultures.
Ethnic
It's
culture.
amazing
Yeah.
to see everybody that's waking up. And so you're right. You would look on the street. You would say, "Oh no, that person would never come into my room or into my class," but they are. They're
Yeah,
coming
they
in.
are.
And
Yeah.
they want more and more.
They
They
want
can't
more
get
and more.
enough, and they ask for more information. Where else can I go? What else can I study? Who else do you know? I know from my clients and my classes the same thing, and they keep on referring more people because they're hungry. They're hungry for this.
And they want to understand more, want to
Because they
understand
know
more of
there's-
themselves.
Right,
Yeah.
they know there's more out there, and they realize that they have been limited in their life.
That's
And-
the point right there.
And then you open this little door up, and they're like, wow, it's limitless. And they're ready because the consciousness is really raising.
Yes,
That's
it
why
is.
we can talk about it here.
I just
so
think
openly.
that, yeah, I just think that is really an important part, that there's just this opening. And to me, if you are doing the same thing you've always done, 6 months from now, you're going to be in the same place.
Right.
Right? So for you to change something, and people that I get sometimes are just so hungry for a change. I will say a lot of times I'm the last resort chick.
Yeah.
It's like, I've done everything else. My friend said that you do weird stuff, let's talk about it. I don't care how they come, because I know they've come in the right way.
That's right.
The right way. I know you're seeing all kinds of people come to you as well.
Well, I have, it's from a very young age until it's the whole spectrum. And I get a
that
lot of people, it's like, well, I've had this different abilities, I don't understand them, and they can come to a place where everybody else has similar experiences, and they feel comfortable, okay, this is a place where I feel safe, when I can explore these abilities and capacities that I have, and you can help them understand what it is and not be fearful of it. And so it's really quite lovely when you get a group together and they're very supportive of each other. It's like, oh, is that what that is that's going on? And it relieves them, and they start feeling more free. Yeah.
Creating those communities.
Yeah, they start feeling good about themselves as opposed to feeling weird about themselves.
And for the first time, they feel safe.
That's a big
And
thing.
I think a lot of, and I'm sure that all these ladies here, including you, when you create a class, you're creating a very safe environment. And that safety means so much to them because they don't feel like they have to hold anything back.
Or be judged.
Or be judged.
Well, video does that.
Yes.
I do a lot of video,
Yep.
and I find that people can watch video without anybody else knowing that they're watching it, but they're still learning and they're opening up. And when they're ready, maybe they'll let people know what they believe in. Maybe they won't, but at least they can watch it and learn. And that's a big thing too. I think video is huge for a lot of people right now.
All of those are good. And the thing that I've seen different lately that I would encourage anybody watching this too to explore is people coming to this as a family unit. Or as I used to have, there was a group of ladies that came from a specific business, like they would all come together. So there was support at work. I've had whole families come to me, which I think is really lovely when you have grandma, mom, dad, and the kids that are all experiencing something like that together. Something like Reiki is a wonderful way to open that up. And it's exciting to me. It's exciting to me, and I hope it's exciting to you. And I hope that you're not going to be afraid of developing your own intuitive gifts. It is natural. It is the most wonderful way to live your life. I don't know about you all. It's certainly the way I intend to live my life, but some days fall down the well, get back up and go, that's not how it works. But we can work from that place, right? We can work from a place of divine love, of having that internal and eternal energy guide everything that we do. That's the way that I look at it. I've heard some people say that they like to have God as their co-pilot. Why wouldn't you want him flying the plane? Like, for real. And I must say, I've had him in the trunk before, but I've let him out now. And I've got him flying the plane, and I am taking direction. So that's going to do it for now. All of these ladies have websites. Quickly tell us your website and how people can learn out more about you, Melody.
Actually, the easiest way is just to Google me.
Google her.
Melody Craft, and I'm all over the
She's all over, and it'll be in credits too.
Melissa Fike, FEICK.com.
There we go.
Rhonda Powell, and you can catch me on AngelicReikiLight.net, and you can catch me on Facebook, Angelic Reiki Light Healing.
And we'll have all of their information in the credits right following this. So I really appreciate you being here. I want to thank Melody, Melissa, and Miranda. You see I got my trio of M's here today for being here on this topic that I think is really very important, your clarity and your intuition. I want to thank Tremaine Johnson, who is Love Unleashed, who's the one that makes all of this happen. I want to thank our crew and everybody that supports heart-centered success. I'm Diane Hayworth, and I'll see you next time. Much love to you.